Hey everyone, welcome back. I am getting ready to work on my mood board inspired project. This month's mood board is very wintry, and for making that I am going to be working with the mixed media kit. In this month's mixed media kit there are these alterable flowers, a pack of watercolor brushes. I'll be using some I have from a previous kit. Save this pack for later. There is this stencil. You saw me use it in my... No, it hasn't come up yet. I used this stencil in my cards, tags, and more project that will be next week. And then there is this Art Alchemy gouache set. There's 18 tubes of color in here. You can kind of see the overview right there. It tried to focus. And then an 8x8 watercolor panel. I have already started. I have taped down here. I have an 8x8 piece of watercolor paper that I was working my idea out on to try to figure out what I wanted to do. So I already know which colors I'll be using. I have the deep green pulled out, the Prussian blue, lemon yellow, ultramarine, titanium white, black, and burnt umber. My palette that I use to mix everything up, because I'm going to kind of recreate on my panel this little wintry scene. Nothing overly extravagant, but just something that's rather simple and that will fit on to this panel. So I think for this project, because of the nature of painting and the process for it, since some of it has to be, worked quickly, there's dry time, I am just going to record my process, and then I will come back and voice over what I'm doing, and hopefully when I do that I won't forget what I did, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to get started, get this unwrapped. I think I will use some artist's tape to go along my edges here, just to help keep them clean from any drips that may happen, and then start going. Okay, before I get started on the work here and where I will be coming in and just doing a voiceover, I'm going to talk about what else you might see me use, kind of go over my color palette so you know what I'm dipping into, and explain my measurements here just for that circle background. Alright, where to start? Alright, I have a pencil, which I just used now. I have a variety of brushes that I used at various stages when I was working out my my template here. Not really a template, my practice. We'll call it my practice. Okay, none of these brushes are professional artist brushes. Okay, absolutely none of these brushes cost me $20 a piece. My most expensive brushes in here are my Finnabair set. Okay, I think it was $20 for the whole pack, if that. So my most expensive brushes I'm using are my Finnabair brushes. These brushes are all from Walmart. You do not need squirrel hair brushes that cost $20 a piece for this. I mean, maybe if you were going to be making something to show up there at the professional artist level, yes. But for my purposes, no. I want to talk about these brushes in particular. Fan brushes. This one actually used to look like this, but those little parts there broke off, so it's not as fanny anymore, but it still worked. Like I said, not expensive, so they may fall apart on me. Okay, oh, it's for the trees. These were actually rather imperative for the trees. I forgot to say why they were pulled out there. My palette. I have these shades of blue here, or this one and this one. They're in two different spots because, well, I was mixing all sorts of ways. That is the ultramarine. Some black there. My lemon yellow there. My deep green in various mixings, mixed in with white. This right here is completely unmixed. This is my burnt umber there. I have some white here. There's white in lots of places because I use it to mix in with my other colors. And then I have the Prussian blue, which is not anywhere right now solid because I would add it in when I was working on some grays or my blue grays and such. Okay, so I'm trying to make sure that you kind of know what I'm dipping into, because really once the painting starts, it's really a focused project. For my frame that I drew, this is an 8-inch canvas. This, on the outside edges, is almost a 7-inch bowl. So, I gave myself guidelines half an inch in. It doesn't like white. Alright, I gave myself guidelines half an inch in on the edges, and then eyeball centered my bowl because it is very, very close to 7 inches. So there's not really a lot of wiggle room. It's easy to eyeball. I've already put that artist tape on my outside edges to hopefully protect them. And then, before I get going, after I pencil on this, I'm gonna erase the outside lines at my half-inch mark. And then on this circle, I am not going to erase it completely, but I am going to lighten it. And now with that lightened up, I can still see my line that I'm going to use roughly. And now it is time for me to start my painting process. So from here on out, I will do a voiceover and hopefully be able to explain well enough what you're seeing. Alright, I'm coming in, getting ready to do my sky, which is going to be the base of the whole background. I mixed together some of the titanium white, the ultramarine, and that Prussian blue. And I just go in rough to start, just to kind of get color in the general idea. And I do go back with a wetter mixture just to smooth those lines out some. I now moved on and I'm just using straight titanium white, starting along the edge of the blue circle and then just pulling it out towards the edge of the canvas. The paper canvas, whatever you want to call it. I go in, and this is what I love about the water brushes. I was able to drop down a line of water at the edge to reactivate the blue, to help that blue and that titanium white kind of blend together and give me a more faded look along the edge of my circle. And then I just go back and I clean up any blue that isn't exactly where I want it. This is, I mean, it's imprecise at best. I'm not worried about having perfectly clean lines. I think that it goes with that snowy feel. And I'm just going back, making sure it was all how I wanted it, I guess. As you can see, gouache dries wider. So after my gouache had completely dried, I'm going in, I'm using a white Stabilo pencil, and I'm just sort of outlining where I want items to go. I'm not really drawing a cloud or painting a cloud. I'm more like lifting. I'm re-wetting the gouache, and I was lifting where I wanted that cloud to be. It's one of the great things about gouache watercolors. You can put it down and then you can lift color off. Still kind of working on it. I had used my white Stabilo a little bit, blended that in, and now I'm coming in and starting with just some white mixed with a little bit of that blue that was left to start working on where I want my snowy background and my little snow mounds. I just dropped down straight titanium white in my cloud area, came in with one of those water brushes from the kit, spread it out, and I'm using that water brush to kind of spread and blend my snow into my blue. It does take a few layers for me to get what I'm happy with. But when gouache is dry, you can, to an extent, layer on top as long as it doesn't get too wet. I came in here with my burnt umber, and I'm just putting tree trunks in, kind of roughly. The majority of these trunks will get covered with branches and snow-covered branches. So I'm just really kind of working on placement. I do mix in a little bit of the titanium white just to give some lines to it, so it's not just a solid block of brown, so it kind of looks more like bark might look on a tree. Came back in on top of that with just a small round brush. I think it was a number 2, maybe a number 4. Just adding a little bit more. Well, it was all still wet, so it could kind of blend together. And this gave me light and dark patches, stripes, to represent light and dark areas that you generally find on tree trunks. I was getting this wet. I thought that tree trunk was too fat because this tree does end up kind of looking like it's more in the distance. So, like I had said, gouache is great because you can lift it back up. And that's what I did. I lifted up that brown, or the umber, the burnt umber from that tree trunk, narrowed my tree trunk down. I didn't worry about going all the way up because I knew that I'd be putting branches on, but down at the bottom where it was more likely to be seen, I just narrowed my tree trunk and came back in and fixed my sky. I ended up kind of fixing the whole sky when I decided it needed to all match from where I had gone along that tree trunk. Basically just more layers, spreading them out with a wet brush, kind of following along the edge of my cloud, which I do end up moving because I do start thinking that it was too low. And this is just a wet brush, still trying to make my snow right. Alright, it's all dry again. I'm coming in right now with straight titanium white on top and just using a flat brush to spread it around. I didn't want to get it too wet because I did not want too much blue to come through, but I didn't necessarily want my snow pure white either. Kind of cleaning up an edge there with that water brush. Working on like hills and how snow might look along the base of a tree trunk. I didn't really have a picture to go off of besides what was in my head, so I kind of just had to work until I felt like it looked okay. Here I am deciding I need to erase my cloud, so I just give my brush wet and make it go away. At this point, that section where my cloud was very, very, very wet. Running some more titanium white mixed with a little bit of a blue-gray that I had kind of thrown together over there, just to really get some definition between the snow and the skyline. I'm just using a wet brush, well, wet with that blue-gray, to kind of make hills so it looks multi-layered. That's what I was really hoping for around here. I decided it was too gray. I'm adding just some more blue, smoothing out my edges. I think that was the ultramarine and white just mixed together. just to lighten that up a little bit. Still working on my snow. It took me a little bit to get it right. Somehow my practice page that I showed you at the beginning went along a little bit better. They're different papers. My practice page is a cold press watercolor paper. This, I don't know if it says if it's hot press or cold press, but it is a smoother surface than mine, so I think maybe it was a hot press. Just adding water with my water brush. It's basically really soaked right now. And coming back in, making my cloud a little smaller and higher. It was just too close to my snow, which is why I had to move it. Alright, I had let it dry. I'm coming in, adding just some blue, I think it was just the ultramarine, into my sky. Kind of brightening it up just a little bit. Alright, I just want to cut in here real quick and talk about an option. If you find your paper starting to bulge because of a lot of rework, like I moved my cloud and I added a lot of water to my snow to get the colors to blend together, so it was starting to get kind of bulgy, as watercolor papers do. Now when I work on water paper sheets, I'm able to tape them down, and after preparing them, which is just, you soak them in water and then you tape them down with I have like a gum tape that's actually activated by water. Okay, so I can't very well do that to this, but I did figure out, as this started to bulge, I just waited for the paint to dry. The paper wasn't dry. It wasn't dry underneath, but my surface paint was dry. And I used a paper towel, this one, so you can see no paint got on it, to protect it. And then I added just some acrylic blocks to help distribute the weight and weight it down with various items. And then I just let that dry overnight. And now this morning you can see no more bulge. So I thought I'd give that little tip in there that I discovered, that if this starts getting too wet, it starts bulging, while the paper underneath is still dry but your surface is wet, you can weigh it down and get that bulge to dry on out. Alright, my background is dry. I just talked about how I kept that flat because it was so wet that the paper was really starting to dome up. I'm still here working, trying to get my snow just right. It really actually took me a lot longer than what I was hoping for. So I just keep going in with various combinations of blues and grays and blue grays and titanium white, just working on my layers. I let that layer that I had just done start to dry. Well, I used the deep green and a fan brush to just go in and start building my trees. I added some white to some of that to make my, I guess it would be my more forward tree, the one that looks like it would be closer to you, slightly lighter, because objects closer are going to appear lighter than that tree that is further back. Now, my background tree went perfectly fine for me. I was happy with it, maybe because it ended up getting mostly covered. But I really fought with this front tree. It was either too light for me, too blurry. I'm coming in more of that burnt umber, giving a little bit more definition to my tree trunks, bringing that front tree down further just to make it look closer so that it's not on the same level as the back tree. While my trees are drying, I'm just going in and just using my water brush to lift, just to give a little bit of definition and shading to my cloud. With my green dry, I'm using a fan brush again, going in with straight titanium white and making my snow covered branches. Like I said, that front tree gave me a lot of grief. It ended up too snow covered, so then I tried to go back in with some more of the green and white mixed together, adding a little bit more green. I really had to work on this front tree quite a bit to get it to a point that I was happy with. This mixture that I'm using here, I had my deep green and my titanium white, and to kind of give it this more like iced color, I guess, it reminds me kind of maybe like an iced spruce, like the Tim Holtz ice spruce. I just added a little bit of that Prussian blue, kind of giving it a different tint than that back tree. Here, once again, now I have too much green in my tree, and I will be going back with more titanium white to try to fix it. Here I'm coming in, just trying to add some definition around the tree trunk where there might be snow piled up, the hills in the back, and I'm just going in with titanium white, and I'm not brushing it on smooth. You can see a little bit of striation in there. I'm using my blue-gray mix, still trying to get the definition worked out. Adding a little bit of gray to my cloud, which I do end up lifting off. And now I'm going in with my water pen and just trying to smooth things out. Let those colors just naturally blend together how they want without really spreading them apart or spreading them around. After it had dried some, I do go in, kind of pick up any excess water, just sort of tap that brush around, that flat brush, just so it's not necessarily smooth, but not necessarily so broken up either. More water. So it's fortunate I figured out how to keep that flat while the paper dried. I really wanted it to go all the way to the edge so there wasn't such a sharp definition down there. Trying to fix my cloud. adding just a bit more titanium white, and I'm really just using that brush to dab it where I want it, so it's not a smooth edge. This right here, I just grabbed a big brush that I have, laid down some white and dabbed it with that brush all over. There, I'm just cleaning up the edge. I'd done so much work there, I needed to clean up that edge between the white part and the circle. I just used a wet brush right there just to sort of mark inside, or mark my little hill lines. And I'm back to the tree. Alright, I'm just using my white Stabilo. It is almost impossible to see on here, but I was able to see it well enough. And I just sort of sketched out an outline for an area of where I was going to put my animal. I haven't decided if it looks like a fox or a wolf yet, so we're just going to call it an animal. And I did use the lemon yellow mixed with some of the titanium white as my base color. It just kind of helps it stand out, I think, especially since I am going to be going back over with the white. So while that background for my animal dries, still fixing my tree. I spent a lot of time on this tree. And here I am going in with a very light bluish gray. It's barely got any blues in it. It's mostly the titanium white, and I'm starting to build my layers up where I'm going to have this creature, how big it's going to be, adding outlines, more of a gray, kind of a shadowy effect. I'm working on where the shadow will be under the head, a little bit to kind of show where legs might be, the tail. I'm coming in with straight titanium white to kind of cover up some of the shadowy area. I added a lot of water to the two larger sections that have the grays and the blues in them, just to really give me a thinned down bit of color to work with and blend in. I let it dry, coming back in with another layer. It is best to let it dry between layers. Like I said, gouache is a water reactive. If it gets too wet, it's just going to bleed through everywhere. So I do, to try to get layers going, I do try to let the first layer dry before I come in with my other one, so there's not too much reaction. I'm adding my grays, trying to make sure I keep my shadows where I want them so I can get the shapes close. Once again, those water brushes are great for spot blending, I guess I would say. I can control exactly where I want my water. Let it dry again. This one, I don't even remember doing. I had just got out of the shower. I'm guessing I came to check on it and see how it was coming along, see how it was drying, and decided I needed to paint some more. I hadn't even bothered taking my hair out of the towel. And, well, this is what happens when my ADHD decides it needs to work. Alright, my hair's dry. I'm thinking it must be the next day. I'd let it dry overnight. Still working on my creature here. I did have a little bit of trouble on these ears, but fortunately gouache can be cleaned up relatively easily. Still just trying to get some shadowy effects along the edges. Just enough that my foxwolf stands out from that snowy background. This is just the straight black. It was a dried spot from when I had done my practice page, and I just got it re-wet, and I used a real fine brush to start trying to put in eyes, nose, and the lip line. Using my water brush again, trying to clean up my ears. Using it with the blues and the grays, picking it straight up with that water pen just to get my shadows blended. Going back in, the water brush was also great to kind of make sure my eyes were even. One of them originally came out bigger and higher, so I was able to more or less just kind of push it down into place using the tip of that water brush. Working on my detail now, trying to get that shadow that would be the inside of the ears. Blending out from the edge of my wolf fox. Re-wetting that snow, letting the colors just kind of mix together. Doing this work on the fox, it can take as long as you need it to, until you are happy with it. And it did take me a little bit to get the details to a point that I was okay with. Coming in at the end here, making sure that my fox is, well, my fox wolf. I was going for a fox. I don't know how well I did. Didn't really look at a picture. I just kind of know what foxes look like and decided that that was good enough for me. Mostly. I tried to look at pictures, didn't really help me. Alright, I did finally get all of my touch-ups and shading to a point that I am more or less happy with. Thank you for joining us here at Tres Jolie. I hope you enjoyed this project and I gave you an idea of how gouache paints work. They are, at least these kind, they're apparently acrylic gouache. Traditionally though, gouache is more of a watercolor type of paint. It acts like watercolor, I mean, which is what this particular set is. So I hope this helped you kind of understand how gouache works. You can layer it, but you can still move it around if you need to. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications if you haven't already, so you can always be aware when new project videos get posted or the reveal videos at the beginning of the month. Thank you, and I will see you again next week.